This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. How many of you remember these two videos that I did a couple weeks ago talking about my suspicion regarding the attacks on Catherine coming from the United States and mainly from the Sussex squad? I had stated that it appeared to me that this was a coordinated campaign in order to begin getting ready for this election and trying to clamp down on pushing regulation and getting people silenced. I specifically stated that Catherine was going to be the use case to prove the point of how online misinformation spreads and conspiracy theories being harmful to a person's perception and decisions that they make. Again, I have to emphasize that the very same people who say that they're trying to preserve and protect democracy, like the CCDH and Meghan and Harry and those Sussex vile people, are the very same people who are purposely trying to undermine it and take those rights away. This is a coordinated campaign. Everything that we are seeing Meghan do and the nefarious individuals who are tied to them in parallel in what they have been doing is part of this multi-pronged approach that is aligned with the Biden regime in order to control the online space because Biden wants this re-election to happen. So what better way to do that than to repeat what happened in 2020 and figuring out how to censor and suppress voices that don't align with the ideology that they're pushing or the lies that they are pushing and telling Americans. So what we're seeing now is an active campaign surrounded by misinformation, disinformation, and the upcoming threat to our democracy is AI. And when you think back over the last couple of weeks, we're seeing more and more, and I stated this when Catherine came out with her video, we saw more and more people talk about deepfakes and misinformation with that. And what do you know? Meghan kicks that off at South by Southwest by making that comment about the bullying that she received online by other women. And it led into making the viewer or the audience draw the conclusion that she was talking about YouTube. You have to realize that the method that they had in place to silence and get people deplatformed has been completely disbanded as a result of the social media companies being afraid of being called out for colluding with the government and violating people's First Amendment rights. For what it's worth, I'd like to remind everyone that the CIA went to the South by Southwest festival. You have to ask yourself this question: why is the U.S. intelligence agency going to South by Southwest when all it is just for entertainment and artists? We know that Meghan and Harry are a part of the censorship industrial complex. We know as a fact that Meghan and Harry, more so Harry, has connections within our U.S. government, particularly up to the commander-in-chief. Another thing to remember is that Obama is a big advocate of regulating social media and has been involved with the beginnings of this censorship industrial complex within CTIL, which is the Cyber Threat Intelligence League. Is it a coincidence that Barack went to 10 Downing Street around the same time that DHS asked for an extension for Prince Harry and turning over his visa information? Magically, records have been submitted by DHS, so now all we're doing is waiting to see what judge comes back with. Anyhow, getting back to this, after Meghan makes the statement around bullying online and, platforms needing to do a better job, soon after that, we have the whole thing blow up with Princess Catherine. We have to keep at the forefront that all this drama that was stirred up around Princess Catherine came from the United States. They were all the outlets that Meghan and Harry used to push their propaganda. And then it was amplified by the mobilized terrorist group that Meghan and Harry support called the Sussex Squad. Now, for those that want to revisit or for some reason were not notified of these two videos that I did explaining in detail Meghan's bot army and how they target and go after people attacking them online, please check these two videos that I've done a couple weeks ago. And even after Catherine coming forward and being vulnerable in front of the whole entire world to reveal that she has cancer, you still had these vile squaddies, including Christopher Boozy, continue to not let this situation rest. And the big push now all of a sudden was focused on AI. And the people that were challenging and pushing hard on the AI narrative, saying that this video was AI generated, came from America. As you can see, TMZ listed on there. And in addition to that, the most vocal person that we know of that is still, even after it's been verified that this video was taken by a real person and that was Catherine, is Christopher Boozy, saying that this video was manipulated and AI generated. And this tweet that he put up on April 13 solidified it for me in understanding this active campaign that we have going on here in the United States. Really a strong push towards censoring and locking down social media before the elections. Now, I did say that Meghan and Harry exploited this situation with their liberal progressive friends in order to prove the point. Christopher Boozy confirms everything that I suspected. He goes on to say in this, I want to say, spoutable space, that the reason why he was so fixated on proving that this video that showed Catherine was AI generated was to make the point that Catherine was being used as this test case to show how easy it was to deepfake someone who was this globally influential and the problems that could come out of it if someone did deepfake, let's say, the president. And he brings up this example. And he goes into talking about the election. Now, Christopher Boozy makes a very compelling case as to what happens if someone does deepfake around a potential candidate, showing them in compromisable situations. And he gives a couple examples, but they're all centered around, you guessed it, race. And he emphasizes emphatically about regulation surrounding the online space to prevent this type of misinformation, disinformation, hatred, blah, blah, blah. Is it a coincidence that 3 days earlier it was announced that Meghan and Harry were joining forces in this coalition to stop misinformation and AI manipulation with deepfakes for the election? I explain in great detail about this coalition on this video. So for those that didn't get notified of it, just make a note that you should go back and watch it if you're interested in seeing how all of this fits together. The point that I want to make here about all of this is notice that it's all conveniently timed to work together in coverage. So not only was Meghan and Harry announcing that they're part of this coalition to fight misinformation, coming up with AI and deepfakes, giving examples, then you have Boozy now fixated on Catherine. But you know who else is also fixated on focusing on those swing states? Barack Obama. On April 11th, he posted to X, this year, the Dem redistrict is investing in several state-level elections and backing candidates who are key to stopping anti-democratic agendas, including gerrymandering. I hope you'll join me in supporting them. So as you can see, he puts up the map of all the red states that they're trying to get to flip to turn it blue. So essentially having a one-party state. Now, for those that don't know what gerrymandering is, I think it's important to put the definition up so you can understand and see how manipulative and hypocritical Barack Obama is. As it says here, gerrymandering is a verb meaning to manipulate the boundaries of an electoral constituency so as to favor one party or class. To achieve by manipulating the boundaries of an electoral constituencies. So when you look at this organization that Barack Obama gives a shout out to, the National Democratic Redistricting Committee, on the surface, they're trying to make it look like this committee is a centralized hub for executing a comprehensive redistricting strategy that shifts the redistricting power, creating fair districts where Democrats can compete. This nonprofit that Barack Obama supports lays out a 10-year plan on flipping these states to blue. As it says on the website, our strategy will be critical to achieving fair maps in 2032, but we must start working now. Fighting gerrymandering and nefarious Republicans will require investment and work for the long term. So in this bullet list, number 1 says, best-in-class mapping. Technology and the use of AI are changing rapidly, and our investments in our technical mapping skills will ensure that our tools are cutting edge. Who wants to bet that there will be these deepfakes that pop up the closer we get to the election and give reason for the Democrats to now push for this kind of regulation? And who wants to also bet that it will be the Democrats that are behind pushing out this misinformation in order to prove their point? Because we've seen them do this time and time again. You know, the whole Russia collusion and efforts to sabotage Trump's campaign when he was running against Hillary. Remember, Barack Obama knew what Hillary was doing. I'll put the link below if you want to check out the other bullet points towards this strategy in case this interests you. But the net is showing you the effort that they are taking in order to secure this vote. Not only secure this election, but secure the vote for the Democrats for the next 10 years. This is why we have all this illegal migration coming to the United States and where they're being placed. The goal is to allow them to vote, as well as being counted in the next census, in which that determines how many seats a particular body of government will have. So for the House of Representatives, there'll be certain numbers allocated to various states. Ultimately, the blue states want to achieve getting more seats in order to rule the Senate and the House. This is not about a fair democracy. When you look at bullet point number 4, where it says accountability efforts, it says the NDRC and its affiliates will move the needle towards representative democracy by holding legislators accountable to their voters. That means playing defense to protect good process and fair maps while going on offensive to enforce the Voting Rights Act and challenge racial and partisan gerrymanderers. Now, the way that I interpret number 4 is that they're trying to preserve the process that we have in place, which does allow in a majority of our states for these illegal migrants to be able to vote without ID. There's a lot of pushback right now with the Democrats for passing this law that was introduced to make it a requirement that you show ID in order to place your vote for president. And their excuse is that, minorities and people of color will be at a disadvantage because they might not have ID. I mean, complete nonsense. They don't favor requiring someone to show ID because they say it's racist. And what it looks like to me, this is what this organization is trying to push against and protecting what we have right now in efforts to allow these illegal migrants to go out and vote. Now, I'm just thinking out loud, but part of this strategy in order to secure the vote is to be able to control the information online. And considering they don't have that right now, there is a hard push. You can understand why they're so gung-ho about suppressing voices that potentially expose them to these nefarious things. The corruption that we're seeing on the left, which include Harry and Meghan, is a reason why we see them promoting and supporting this regime. What's really annoying about this tweet put up by Niall Gardner is where he says, "This is outrageous. Meghan and Harry should keep out of U.S. politics. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry wade into politics. The Duke and Duchess launch a campaign to fight against election misinformation." I guess my annoyance with this is that, why is this shocking? And it really does make me question how people perceive Meghan and Harry. There were a lot of people commenting on this post, and I'm going to show you a couple of them because it does lead me to believe that people are still asleep very much about what these two have been up to. Why My Surprise says, ending election misinformation isn't a political issue. It's a nonpartisan civics issue, which every American should support. The Heritage Foundation doesn't because you're fascists and misinformation is your strategy. The Wool Painter says, I wouldn't get too worked up about it. It will be like all their other announcements, just more attention grabbing so they can spend the day reading about themselves. They never actually do anything. It's just clickbait to stroke their enormous egos. And I think this is part of the problem. Just because Meghan and Harry may not be doing things on a day-to-day basis doesn't mean that they don't have people doing it for them. I mean, they have all these consultants. They're the ones that are putting forward these reports. They're slapping their names on it so it can get the attention globally. But they are assisting and helping. Whether or not you think that they're making an impact, that's on you. But when you see all the things that they have been involved with and have happened, such as people getting censored, suppressed, deplatformed, they obviously are playing a role here. So on the surface, sure, it may look like Meghan and Harry don't have that type of influence or people take them seriously, but perhaps maybe that is part of the strategy. It's to distract the public on this nonsense that we see Meghan do day in, day out. But in actuality, it's to keep us from not looking in the direction of where the real evil is happening. And there's so many that I see in the comments that say they're not important or no one listens to them. Well, if that was the case, then why do they continue to keep getting opportunities? Now, on the bright side, there were a few that did get what was going on and did their best to state that. Like in this case, Lady Linda says that it's also illegal what they're doing. Of course, that's talking about Archwell Public Charity getting involved in political action, in which that's against the rules in order to have that 501c3 tax code for all those tax breaks. We all know that Archwell Public Charity needs to be investigated. Now, this last example by Dusty Girl, I was really pleased to see because it does make me feel good that people are starting to get it. This user was just as annoyed as I was when I read Niall Gardner's posts, where she writes, "How is that you are just now addressing this? YouTuber The Royal Grift has been speaking out about this for at least 2 years," and that is correct. She has done a phenomenal job connecting the dots. Thank you, Dusty Girl. They meddled in 2020 election and now they're doing it again. Also, Harry is part of the Aspen Institute. He's a foreign national, is trying to usurp our constitutional right of free speech. He is pushing for censorship. He pushes for censoring the press in the UK, and he is working to censor social media platforms of anything that he and Meghan decide that they don't like. They are the worst offenders when it comes to bots mass reporting accounts they don't like and getting them shut down. Elon Musk, we hope you are aware of that. Hashtag Christopher Boozy. Why is he allowed to meddle in American politics and our constitutional rights with no recourse? What gives him the right to decide what should be allowed on social media and what should be censored? When you first raised the issue of Harry's visa, we wondered why you didn't include this as well. Harry is dangerous to the United States. Go back to the judge and point that out. Now, I couldn't have said it better, but you have to wonder, why is it that not more people know about it? And I'm guessing it's because I'm still a really small channel, and if YouTube is suppressing my videos, then chances are it's not getting the reach that it deserves. I have to remember, what you don't know, you don't know. You would miss this other stuff, the stuff that's affecting you directly and your freedoms. And as you may have seen this weekend, Meghan and Harry have been saturating the media over this Polo and Netflix doing this docuseries in which all the puff pieces that have been put out show Meghan in this kind, compassionate new brand as a mother figure. Meanwhile, part of this campaign to continue on suppressing people online was to go after her brother, in which today that actually started to dominate the headlines in an unfair way. But this is how the PR machine operates. Meghan is carefully now crafting this new rebrand in which she's showing, oh, poor me, look at my brother. This is why I've distanced myself. I'm not such a horrible person. Look how terrible my own family is. I'm going to tell you this right now. This was an orchestrated hit piece and exploiting Thomas Markle to further Meghan's censorship agenda. I also believe that Thomas Markle Jr. hit a nerve with Meghan when he had that person on his live that talked about these surrogates and Meghan not giving birth to those children. This fuels Meghan's desire to shut people down and get them censored. By putting out and paying for these puff pieces about her brother, it doubles down on the justification for what they're doing. In this paid puff piece, it says, Meghan Markle's brother, Thomas Jr., blasted for trolling Duchess in series of vile online videos. Well, it's subject to opinion. I don't find them vile. Maybe Meghan does because she knows that it's truth. And, it's kind of like water and the Wicked Witch. Once the truth hits you, she's melting. Anyhow, it says Meghan Markle's brother has been blasted for running a vile new campaign of abuse against her on his YouTube channel. Okay, pause right there. I hardly consider Thomas Markle Jr.'s YouTube channel as a campaign. Meghan knows a lot about campaigns, and the fact that they wrote that in this article just shows me that all of this is part of the censorship campaign and giving justification as to why YouTube needs to demonetize anyone that criticizes her because she can't take criticism. Well, stay out of the public, Meghan. You are a public figure. You're in the public space. You are in the public domain, a domain which we all share and have the right to comment on. Stay out of the public domain if you don't want people talking about you. The Duchess of Sussex has been targeted by Thomas Markle Jr. with insults and bizarre conspiracy theories. Politicians and royal expert Jenny Bond have led calls for the web giant to take responsibility. And this idiot journalist gives it away by mentioning that there are politicians calling for YouTube to demonetize or deplatform people that Meghan doesn't like. As I've stated before, there is a political factor to all of this. You've got politicians that back Meghan and Harry, whether you agree or not, but back the concept of controlling the online space. Here we go, folks. This is part of the censorship industrial complex campaign. Worse still, Thomas Markle Jr. is profiting from the YouTube clips. And so what? This is America. As followers send him cash tips for the vile slurs around Prince Harry's wife, Meghan and her brother have been embroiled in a family feud and not spoken in more than a decade. Former BBC royal correspondent Jenny Bond led criticism of the royal rants, which she called grotesque. Well, she came from the BBC. That should tell you enough. The videos came to light only weeks after Meg's sister-in-law, Kate Middleton, fell victim to web trolls, pointing to the torment suffered by Prince William's wife, who is battling cancer. Royal expert Bond exclaimed, "Have we learned nothing?" And they were recorded a matter of weeks after Meghan gave a speech warning social media is a dangerous environment for women. Well, quite honestly, Catherine is suffering from a life-threatening disease, while Meghan is still hung up over the fact that someone wrote an article that she came out of Compton. Hardly apples to apples. Now, here's the thing. As we are seeing that this is a clear campaign that Meghan is on, if it wasn't for Thomas Markle Jr., they would have found someone else to make this very same point. Meghan used Thomas Markle Jr. as the example for one, to get back at him for revenge, and two, it's also to get back at her sister because let's not forget, Samantha filed an appeal to continue this lawsuit for defamation. So what's happening now is let's make the family look as bad as possible while the judge looks this over on deciding whether or not it's going to get the appeal. So as in this piece, it's an actual hit piece against Thomas Markle to make him look like this really cruel brother who is bullying his sister and painting this narrative around, oh, Meghan didn't do anything. She doesn't talk to her family, and here they are attacking her. The way that they position this article is to dismiss that Meghan had anything to do with defaming her sister, because look at how unhinged her family is. And they mention it specifically in the article right here. It says the Duchess has also been at the center of a bitter court case launched by Samantha, who is attempting to sue her in a defamation lawsuit in Florida over comments she made during her and Harry's 2021 TV interview with Oprah Winfrey. The suit was dismissed last month, but Samantha had since filed an appeal. Thomas Jr. previously caused embarrassment for the Duchess in January 2017 when he was arrested after threateningly holding a gun to his then-girlfriend's head during a drunken argument. This is all about the optics, folks. We saw Meghan do this when Samantha filed her lawsuit the first go-around. We saw her throughout the time when this case was moving through the system. Meghan would be doing things in the media to paint this narrative around her being this victim. I don't know if you can see it, but this article is serving multiple purposes for Meghan. It's one, getting back at her brother, and if she can get him deplatformed, she will actively try and do it. And two, it is to double down on putting guardrails, aka regulation, on restricting people's speech here in the United States, essentially undermining the First Amendment. And for this final point that I want to make before ending this video is when you look in this article, this paragraph where it says, we can disclose former Glazier Thomas Jr. 57 plays up to his viewers by spreading a number of bizarre conspiracy theories about her. Prince Harry, 39, and their two children, Archie, 4, and little Betty, 2. We have raised the content with former tech minister Damian Collins, who accused online platforms of profiting from misery. He said, the major social media companies must do more to combat harmful content on the platforms, including campaigns of harassment and intimidation. They have created systems that have not only allowed conspiracy theories to thrive, but they are actively promoted by the recommendation systems designed by these big tech companies. Now, folks, if you've been following me for a while, the name Damian Collins should not be new to you. This MP is heavily aligned with the CCDH, otherwise known as the Center for Countering Digital Hate, and their CEO, Imran Ahmed, is like the Christopher Boozy of the UK. Currently, this so called nonprofit that has nonprofit status here in the United States as a public charity, even though it is not considered a charity in the UK, somehow has found its way into the Biden administration to influence in our government, and the White House looking to them to give advice on handling various areas of so called misinformation surrounding COVID, the elections, and now climate change. One of the people that CCDH had on their hit lists was political opponent Robert F. Kennedy Jr., to which they had him or got all the social media platforms to deplatform him and suppress his speech, which was political speech and against our First Amendment and a God given right. In my next video, we're going to revisit this article as it's very much tied to the things that we are seeing now and the people that are involved within this censorship industrial complex. You don't want to miss it. And on that note, definitely leave your thoughts. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe, and I will talk to you later. Bye.
You're such a fraud.